To Andrew Doyle, host of Free Speech Nation, for his thoughts on a big data set, actually, about 10,000 people who were polled about what they feel as members of Generation Z. In other words, they were born between 1997 and, tell me if I'm right, 2012. So at their eldest, they're mid-20s.
Yeah.
Mid-20s. And, this was quite revealing for those of us who aren't sure whether we overdo the snowflake thing.
That's right.
Because this is a big data set, and it's pretty clear that actually about a third of them feel that if somebody's disagreeing with them, they're just factually plain wrong.
It's very worrying, actually. So, as you say, 1 in 3 think that they must be factually wrong. That's the only explanation for any kind of dissent.
Not subjective or old-fashioned argument,
None of that. And then even more worrying than that is almost half of them feel threatened by a different point of view. This is extremely worrying. I've actually recently spoken to a teacher friend of mine who says, because I've been out of teaching now for so long, for a number of years, and she says it's getting worse in terms of the sheer sort of intransigence of some young people. But what I really don't like doing is tarring a whole generation with this brush and saying they're all terribly intolerant, because I talk to young people all the time about this stuff. There's a group called the Free Speech Champions, who is a group of young people who are set up in universities to try and combat this. And what I will say is actually the young people who are nervous about the threats to free speech, the young people who oppose no platforming and cancel culture, are just as vociferous in their own way. Yeah. And so it's not quite as clear a picture, but it is depressing when you see these statistics. And it's happened before. I mean, a few weeks ago, I think we might have spoken about the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, called FIRE, this group in America, who monitor this kind of stuff. They have an annual free speech rankings report, which is conducted over 160-odd university campuses. And they found that this year, it's almost a quarter of students, of respondents, claimed that they felt that in some circumstances violence was appropriate against controversial speakers. Oh. And that kind of thing is very worrying. They also said 66% felt that shouting down controversial speakers was acceptable. Now, this is depressing stuff, and what can you say?
Well, here's what I would have said for years, Andrew, which is that you will always get a counterculture, and that small minority you identify sort of become a bit fashionable, because actually there's a great monolithic majority, and they become establishment opinion, and there's a subversive, transgressive group who actually like to play with things and subvert things. That doesn't seem to be happening.
It does more than you think, maybe. So this survey, which we're discussing, is by a group called More in Common, and as you say, it was a large data set, so it is sort of troubling. But then there is evidence. There are other studies that have suggested that Gen Z, if you're American, or Gen Z, are a bit.
You wouldn't come and say Gen Z in the
I would
studio,
never. I wouldn't dare. I'd bite my throat out for that.